Imagine this scene. You are in a work meeting, presenting an idea that you have dedicated hours of effort to, when suddenly a colleague interrupts with a sarcastic comment, minimizing your contribution. Or perhaps you have had the experience of being ignored or belittled by someone close to you, such as a family member or friend. Situations like these are more common than we'd like to admit, and dealing with disrespect can be a huge emotional challenge. That's where Stoicism comes in, an ancient philosophy that offers powerful tools for facing adversity with balance and wisdom. In this video, we'll explore 10 Stoic teachings that will help you deal with disrespect in an effective and healthy way. These lessons are not just theoretical, they are practical and can be applied in your daily life, whether at work, in relationships, or in any situation where disrespect appears. The main benefit you will take away from this video is emotional empowerment. In the end, you will have strategies to stay calm, respond with dignity, and transform negative situations into opportunities for personal growth. Imagine being able to stand up to disrespect without feeling powerless or reacting impulsively. This is exactly what Stoicism can offer you. So get ready to dive into a journey of self-knowledge and personal development. Shall we start? Before we dive into the 10 Stoic teachings, it's important to understand what Stoicism is and why this philosophy is so relevant to dealing with disrespect. Stoicism emerged in ancient Greece around the 3rd century BC and was developed by philosophers such as Zeno of Citium, Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. Despite being more than 2,000 years old, its principles remain incredibly current, especially in a world where disrespectful interactions are increasingly common. Stoicism is, in essence, a practical philosophy that teaches us to live with virtue, wisdom, and emotional balance. It's not about suppressing emotions, but about understanding that many of the things that upset us are beyond our control. What is within our control, however, is how we react to these situations, and this is exactly where Stoicism connects to the theme of disrespect. When someone disrespects us, our first reaction may be anger, frustration, or even helplessness. These emotions are natural, but Stoicism invites us to reflect. Is it worth letting someone else's actions define our emotional state? The answer, as you will discover throughout this video, is a resounding no. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what really matters, our own actions, thoughts, and reactions. One of the pillars of Stoicism is the idea that virtue is the highest good. For the Stoics, virtue, which includes wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control, is the only true good. Everything else, including the opinions of others, is considered irrelevant. When we apply this idea to disrespect, we realize that a person's worth is not determined by what others think or say, but by their own actions and character. Another fundamental concept is the practice of acceptance. Instead of fighting situations that we cannot change, Stoicism teaches us to accept them with serenity. This does not mean being passive or conformist, but rather recognizing that some things are beyond our control. When someone disrespects us, we can choose to accept that we cannot change another's behavior, but we can control how we respond to it. With this philosophical foundation in mind, we're ready to explore 10 Stoic teachings that will transform the way you deal with disrespect. Shall we start? On virtue as the greatest good, Stoicism teaches us that virtue, comprised of wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control, is the only true good. Everything else, including the opinions of others, is considered irrelevant. When someone disrespects, you remember that a person's worth is not determined by what others think or say, but by their own actions and character. Practical example. A coworker makes a disrespectful comment about your presentation. Instead of feeling diminished, reflect, my virtue and my effort do not depend on his opinion. Action. Tip. Boost your self-esteem by focusing on your strengths and what you can control, your ethics, your work, and your response. Practice of acceptance. Accepting that we cannot control the actions of others is one of the pillars of Stoicism. Instead of fighting disrespect, practice acceptance. This does not mean being passive, but rather recognizing that some things are beyond our control. Practical example. A family member unfairly criticizes you during a family meeting. Instead of arguing, accept that you can't change his behavior. Action. Tip. Take a deep breath and repeat in your mind, I don't control what he says, but I control how I react. Self-control and rational response. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that anger and impulsiveness are enemies of reason. When someone disrespects you, avoid reacting in the heat of the moment. Instead, pause and respond calmly and rationally. Practical example. Someone interrupts you rudely during a meeting. Instead of fighting back, wait a few seconds before responding. Action. Tip. Count to 10 in your head before speaking. This helps maintain self-control and avoid unnecessary conflicts. Gratitude and perspective. Stoicism invites us to practice gratitude, even in difficult situations. When someone disrespects you, try to find something positive in the situation or person. Practical example. A friend publicly disrespects you. Instead of focusing on the offense, remember times when he supported you. Action. Tip. Write down 3 things you are grateful for that day. This helps keep perspective and not overvalue disrespect. 5. Detachment from other people's opinions. Epictetus teaches us that the opinions of others do not define who we are. When someone disrespects you, remember that their opinion says more about them than it does about you. Practical example. Receiving negative comments on social media. Instead of getting upset, reflect, this person doesn't really know me. Action. Tip. Strengthen your self-confidence by listing your achievements and internal values. Practice humility. Stoic humility teaches us to recognize that everyone makes mistakes, including us. When someone disrespects you, ask yourself if you have ever acted in a similar way. Practical example. A subordinate responds rudely to you. Instead of immediately reprimanding him, consider whether you have ever been rude to someone. Action. Tip. Practice empathy and try to understand what motivated the other person's behavior. 7. Focus on the present. Stoicism teaches us to live in the present without dwelling on the past or worrying excessively about the future. When someone disrespects you, avoid reliving the situation in your mind. Practical example. Constantly remembering an old argument. Instead of dwelling, focus on what you can do now to improve the situation. Action. Tip. Practice mindfulness to stay in the present moment. Silence as a response. Sometimes the best response is silence. Stoicism teaches us that we don't need to react to every provocation. Practical example. Someone tries to provoke you with offensive words. Instead of fighting back, choose not to respond. Action. Tip. Practice silence as a way to maintain your dignity and avoid unnecessary conflicts. Transforming conflict into growth. Stoicism invites us to see challenges as opportunities for growth. When someone disrespects you, use the situation to strengthen your resilience and self-knowledge. Practical example. A boss humiliates you in front of the team. Instead of feeling defeated, reflect, what can I learn from this? Action. Tip. Write down the lessons you learned from the situation and how you can apply them in the future. 10. Virtue as a guide in relationships. Ultimately, Stoicism teaches us to act with virtue in all our interactions, even when we are disrespected. This means responding with wisdom, justice, and compassion. Practical example. A friend disrespects you in public. Instead of fighting back, respond calmly and explain how his behavior affected you. Action. Tip. Practice assertive communication, expressing your feelings without aggression. Throughout this video, we explore 10 Stoic teachings that can transform the way you deal with disrespect. From practicing acceptance to focusing on the present, each lesson offers practical tools for maintaining emotional balance and responding wisely to challenging situations. Stoicism teaches us that although we cannot control the actions of others, we can always control our reactions. Remember, disrespect does not define who you are. What matters is how you choose to respond to it. By applying these teachings in your daily life, you will not only become more resilient, but also more confident and calm in the face of adversity. Finally, I want to leave you with a reflection. Disrespect can hurt, but it doesn't have to define you. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Use the Stoic teachings we share today to turn challenges into opportunities for growth. And you, how will you apply these lessons the next time you face disrespect? Think about it. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.